So we have a new job on today, and I spoke about it before. We have our harrow on now because we have a lot of harrowing to do. We have a lot of shoring done and a bit of reseeding and the work around the cottage and a lot of overseeding. So there's quite a bit of harrowing to be done. Our broadcaster doesn't sit there no more because it's sold. We're going to try to fit our replacement, which is an air seeder. So let's get it out. Let's see, can we get it up on this first and figure out how is the best way to fit it. I don't think I'm going to be fully able to do this on my own, but let's give it a go. So this is what we bought. It's a rotometer air seeder, and I've got loads of bits and pieces of connections here that I'm going to have to go through, but I'm looking at this here first to see can we get this thing mounted. And you can mount it two ways. You can mount it vertically or horizontally. So horizontal is the way I'll have to mount this because there already is a plate on this to mount. The holes don't line up, so I'm probably going to have to drill a few holes unless them two bolts there line up, which they don't. Typical. We're definitely going to have to do some drilling. Get up there. Right, stay. 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 You son of a... Done. Right, so the next thing we have to do is pull it back and get the other bolts back in. So this little rubber nylon sleeve has to go in. They make it awkward, don't they? And it falls on the ground. It's supposed to fall on the ground. To say on average the nylon bushing will fall on the ground 3 times. If you get past 3 times, you're probably safer offering somebody to give you a hand to fit it. There's number 2. I let the nylon bushing fall on the ground one more time. That was a total of 3 times, and I went in then. So technically, don't need anybody to help me fit it. All right, so sort of on. The problem is that this plate that's underneath, it was never designed to take this one. The plate doesn't come far enough back, so if you move this, it moves too much. You can't have that. And the reason it's moving is, you can see here, there's no support on this side. Having 2 bolts here is just not enough. It's too top heavy, so we're going to have to put something here. So I have 2 options. I can extend this plate back the whole way. That means I'm going to have to grind off paint. I'm going to have to weld on it. Then I'm going to have to repaint it, or it's going to rust. Well, these guys here could actually do something for me. If I can get a plate made, like that one there, for instance, is galvanized of an old cubicle. And if that fitted underneath here, which it looks just about right, and if I can get 2 long bolts and just wrap it around it, or even there, oh man, that'd hardly work, would it? Would it? These holes here are 14 inches. The ones on the upper plate are 15.5 inches. So this will fit lovely underneath the beam that's already there. But if I put it in the vise, let's give her a little squash. She'll stretch out a bit. Maybe not. Maybe. Oh, it was a bad idea. We might do it a different way. Right, so I cut it off a wee bit more symmetrical. Now, do I have the right bolts to go the whole way down? That's the thing. It's not looking like it. Wait a minute. 2 bolts, lock nuts and washers. Never fit, would it? You'd nearly think I planted it, wouldn't you? I did. That's it. She'll move nowhere now. She'll bend the whole frame before she'll move. There is a wee bit of movement on them pins. I don't know whether it's supposed to be there or not, but it's tight enough. There is our little cubicle bracket, the way it fitted around. That worked out a treat. So the next thing we have to do is we have a block connector here that we need to connect into a wire that runs into our cab. And here we have our block connector down here. So it's got 4 and 1, 4 and 1. They match up. Easy for me to remember because I do like a 4 and 1 in the Chinese. Right, that's that connected. Yeah, there's a lot of cable with this. I definitely have to roll it up, cable tie it. At least we have enough anyway, we're sure of that. We have another set of cables here, and I'm sure this has to go the whole way to the battery. And then this has to come into the cab and connect into this. And then the other one we're just have to put into the cab. Feeds back out to the hopper that's outside, or the whatever you want to call it. Nice and simple. Have no idea what it does, but it looks simple. Next thing we have to do is take off this battery box. Now there's cow dung everywhere here, but the good thing about it is it's dry. But this tractor's topping the whole time, so it's covered in dung most of the time. I was told by loads of companies, whenever you get an electrical motor or anything like that, no matter what it's on, always run a wire direct to the battery instead of using the 3-pin plug, because the 3-pin plug can surge and it can easily burn out a motor on them. And I'm not loosening anything here because that's all trusted. These steps here normally in any other Massey I had would fold up in the air to let you open this cover. This one doesn't, unless it's been changed and someone has took the fold up step off it. But normally it folds up and lets you at the battery. And it's making it awkward. Yeah. There we go. Someone else has run a wire here already to something. That's going to the loader. That's exactly where that's going. We'll run another one equally the same. We'll bring it up through the cab, through exactly where the loader goes through, and run it up probably underneath that dash somewhere. Just leave it nice and tidy and it'll come out of the back, so you'll not be rubbing again anything, or it'll not be tangling on anything. And yeah, that should be straightforward enough. Maybe I spoke too soon. Right. There's plenty of cable anyway, so we don't have to be running short. And I'll just cable tie that the whole way around with the same cables that's coming from the loader. Bring it around the back here, so the box can close and it's not getting caught in anything. I also don't want it rubbing again any steel. Yeah, just loosely like that in. Lovely. Right, just loosen this terminal off. It's all going to turn, isn't it? It is. Stuff. Right, so we put our blue wire on the positive. I'm just messing with you. That goes on there. That is the... We'll come back to this when I said a few course words. Alright, so we're in the cab. Our controller is fitted. Thunderboards ago. I don't know what that noise does, but it's making a noise, which is a good thing. So here's our wiring coming through here. So I run this cable up from the bottom. I opened up all this, took it all apart, run the cable up along here, and I have it now coming out here. There's a little hole there coming out, so there's not a big heap of wires, and whenever I want to disconnect this, I just unplug that there, lift this, put it in the shed, and that's it, it's done. I'm going to have to roll this up. We've a tidier yet, have to fix that up, but at least there's no wires hanging around that's going to get caught in anything. I didn't record that, so some might ask, how did that all go, Adrian? Well, it'll bring a tear to your eye. It's just following day, and the next thing we have to do is we have to start mounting our pipes that's going to come out of this. We're going to just drill holes through these. This by works here. Plug them in, be a starter. Right, so we have our rails there and we have our clamps put onto the rails. They'll move back and forth now until we put them into the final spot. But what I have to do now is I have to come along here and I have to drill a hole there and a hole there to mount these. Last night I spent about an hour after milking rooting, and you know what? I made zero progress. It was a failure. Once we had these mounted roughly, we went to slip our rail in and we found out quite quickly that these were not low enough and they were hitting again this. So yeah, that was a complete waste. We're going to have to rethink this. So I'm going to have to take them back off. I have another idea that definitely should work. So let's get straight into that. Too small. And that's the only ones we could get. So these U-bolts, they're too small, they're too narrow, and I can't get any wider. And the next size up from that is out about this far, so it's going to leave it very loose. So I'm going to modify these that they're exactly the right size. Right, well, after several attempts, and talk about a job, that is the only way I could find that actually worked to put the rail on up here. I have tried so many different ways, and all the work that I done earlier on was all just completely wasted, because there's no way, no matter what I done, there was no way I was going to get it mounted down there and get them gap right, that they would disperse the seed evenly. Tines would be hitting against them as well, and they would be shook to bits. So I'm hoping this will work. I think it'll work better than down there, because down there you get sods and things that will always get stuck in the tines, and if you have the seeder plate, the spread plate down here, if a sod gets stuck in front of it, it's going to knock the whole seed being spread properly. And I always would wonder, you hit a stone, the tine can go sideways as well as up, and would end up bending them plates. So I think we have it in the right spot. There we are. There are our spread plates, you want to call them, whatever you call them. They're all fitted anyway, and they're all in the right spots. You can move them across anytime I want. Just loosen these two nuts and you can move them back and forth. But they're sitting in nicely. I'm happy with the way that has worked out. So yeah, frustrating. But you know what? On YouTube, everything is made to look easier than it actually is. So that's why I wanted to show you a little bit of work that I'd done that was completely in vain. We had to go back to the drawing board and do this, which actually worked out an awful lot simpler, way less complicated, and less complicated to me is normally better. And you might wonder why there's a plastic bag hanging here. Well, we're having some downpours here every so often, so I don't want this getting wet. I'm wrapping the bag up and around it, a wee strap here, every time the rain comes anywhere near. It hasn't rained this morning here yet, but that's not to say there's big black clouds just over my head. Anyway, next thing we have to do is get our pipes on. So here on the ground, I'm after laying out some of our fittings. Quite straightforward, Jubilee clips. These guys here came with just your Y piece, and then you screw this one down. So I think the reason for that is that you can just disconnect it to lift off that guy if you want to put him to storage for the winter. Just unscrew this here rather than having to undo any Jubilee clips. You just unscrew that, lad. Pull off the short pipes that's coming out of that there, and you can lift it straight off. Cut this about here. We're going to stick on our Y, which is going to connect to this. So one pipe does 2 spreaders. We're over here now on the other farm. Already I'm just after landing over here, and it's a lovely day so far, and it's just gone 11 o'clock in the morning and I'm getting drops of rain. So I'm not going to talk too long about it. All I'm doing today, because soil is still damp, we had a lot of rain last night, drying out enough to do this job. So I'm not going to do any of the major parts down towards the cottage or the field below just yet. We're going to just get these parts that were shored, this one here and another one down at the bottom of the field, grass seed into them, and then I'll come over later on this evening. I gather all the stones when I'm here, because I have the bucket on the front of the loader, and we'll do all that and get that wrapped up today and rolled in hopefully tonight and finish with. What you wanted to see and what the video was about today was our rotometer that we bought. Advantage Ireland was where we found it, and we accidentally came across it on Facebook. Do you ever be in a conversation, have you got a smartphone for instance, and you're in a conversation in your house, then after that conversation, maybe a day or so after, you go on Facebook or something like that, and for some weird reason on your news feeds on Facebook or on, you know, that advertisement section, you'll see exactly what it was you were talking about pop up. I know there is Siri on phones, and I do believe your phone does listen to what you're saying and gives you these things. I don't know how it happens, but it happened. And this happened to pop up one morning when I was having my breakfast back several months ago, and I had been thinking and had been pricing them last year, because if you remember the broadcaster that we have, I had an issue with our broadcaster, and I'd even have an issue with it today if I was using it, and that is something that we get a lot of here because we're high up and fairly exposed, is wind. The broadcaster, I could never get an even spread with it. I was watching the way it was sometimes blowing it to one side and sometimes blowing it too far out the back as well. That was another issue, completely missing the tines. Even on the lowest speed, I just wasn't happy with it, and that is the simple fact of it. Unless you face your tractor into the wind, or go ahead and buy a deflector if you can get one as well to stop the wind from catching it as soon as it come out of the spinner. I just found it was going everywhere and it was very uneven, and we're using a lot more seed than we needed to use to get the same job done, if you get me. Are expensive, a lot more expensive, and that is the main reason why I bought the broadcaster first, because it was a lot cheaper. So I sold my broadcaster, and lucky enough I got a good price for it. I only lost about €200 off the price of it new, so that was a good start going towards this. I sold a bale trailer earlier on in the year, you might remember, and that was put towards this as well. And then there is a 40% TAMS 3 grant on these as well that you can avail of. And if you're a young person, you might qualify for even 60% of a grant. Right, so the rain's not far away. I'm going to get on with this now. So I'll show you the settings really quickly in the tractor, and I'm going to do these two tiny little spots. The main use of this I'll show you in more detail later on. Here's the controller here. I haven't fixed anything yet, but it sits there. And every time I find you're looking behind at this job, it's just nightly. It doesn't have to be mounted. I might make a wee plate or something here eventually, but for now it's grand. Fan control, motor control. So Peter was one of the lads, you can see here in the messages, I'm not sure if you can read my WhatsApp messages, but Peter was one of the lads I was dealing with, and I messaged him last night and I asked, could you give me kind of an idea, because the manual was a wee bit awkward to read, and could you give me an idea when you're out maybe doing demos and stuff, or what the right settings would be for that. So we talked back and forth, but I don't know if you can make them out. So for a bag to the acre, on new full reseed, fan speed 12, motor 7. So that's what I have it set at. 7, 12. You want to put a half a bag to the acre, travelling at 8 kilometers an hour, and this is for overseeding. You'd go with fan max speed at 12 and motor and rotor speed at 9. So every setting seems to be running this fan at full capacity, and most of the changes in the output is all done through the motor. So when you're doing the headlands, or when you want to stop and pick it up and turn the seeder off, you just turn this one off here, which is basically turn the motor off. The fan stays running all the time. It's the motor that's giving you the feed of grass seed. So once you turn that off, that's your grass seed cut. Your fan can stay running. So I've just had to give it a quick run there with the Harrow, and that's just opened up the seed bed. So we've a good enough seed bed there now. We get some seed on it right away. Also what I done was I turned it on for the first time and had a quick look at it, and you could see instantly the seed coming out when I turned the motor on and off. The fan is now running. You probably can't hear it with the noise of the tractor, but the fan now at the front is running, and it seems to be coming out really nicely and spreading nice and widely. Everything seems to be working so far, so good. So let's get some seed on this. I did a section where I covered it in, and then I did a section over here where you see the tire marks where I didn't cover it in. I just want to see what kind of seed coverage we're getting, and we having any gaps and so and such. There's plenty of seed anyway. I'm just going to look the whole way across here and see, is it even? Yeah, it's all there. Can you see it? The bit that we did harrow over as we were doing it, grass seed is covered. I'm not seeing any grass seed, so it's just nicely covered. Mr. Worm, glad to see you. And there's our grass seed there. I don't know if you can see it there on the camera. Another thing I have to be really careful about, and this was the main reason why I was trying to mount these guys as far back as possible. If you mount it too close to the front, you're getting too many tines hitting the ground, and that's burying the seed too deep, because these do dig in and they can bury seed very, very deep, and that's going to make it very hard for the seed to come, make it really slow for it to come as well. So I find if you look at contractors that are doing this, normally they'll have their seeders or this pipe system mounted almost at the very back. So I'm not sure if we have this in the right place. I just seen a couple of photos online where people had it mounted just about here. So I may be right, I may be wrong. We're getting 3 tines on it as it runs past. If I find that it's not right and that seed doesn't come up quick enough, I can move this back right back to here, and that'll reduce it to 2 tines. At least I have the ease of moving it. Just by loosening these 2 U-bolts, we can move the whole thing back. But the moral of the story is it's working, and I can't tell you anything more about it until the next follow-up video on it, which will be a few weeks. Bit of overseeding to be done, and then we see the results as well. So it could be a month, even 2 months before you see that video, but I will put it up. We just need to do it right, because it's all well and good seeing it working now. You want to see the results, and that's the only thing that tells you whether it's worthy or not. Anyway, I'm going to get this all tidied up here, get some sods gathered and stones, come back, get the thing rolled, do the other couple of bits we have to do down to the field, and we come back to it at a later stage and I'll show you the results of it. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.